afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to another video here from the Off-Grid Garage in sunny hot Australia. We've got like 200 amps outside today. Still at the beginning of springtime, but a lot of sun. All right, in today's video, we are coming to an end of our test with the, no, not with the EEL battery, with the battery shelf. Let me move this one out of the way here. Hang on. Now that's better. So around a couple of weeks ago, I changed the settings in my solar charge controllers and started charging the batteries to a higher voltage, higher absorption voltage. Because since the installation 1.5 years ago, I only charged the batteries to 55.2 volts, which is 3.45 per cell if they're all balanced. And we know from the many tests we have done with the tester, this actually charges the battery to almost 100% state of charge, with a bit of absorption time. But it keeps the voltage low, so it is not as stressful for the battery than charging to a higher voltage. But the problem was that we have seen a huge imbalance in the top battery shelf and also in the bottom battery shelf. These BMSs, the Heltec and the Overkill, have like 150, 200 milliamps passive balancer only, while the middle shelf has a JK BMS with a 2 amp active balancer. So there was never an issue with this battery here, but these two shelves, well, the deviation got a bit too high when I charged to a higher voltage until one of the cells hit 3.65 volts and shut down the whole battery. And a lot of viewers told me I'm charging my batteries wrong. Andy, you need to charge to a higher voltage to give the balancer of your BMS a better chance to do its job. So I listened to you and changed it from 55.2 volts to 56.8 volts, which is 3.55 volts per cell if they're all balanced. And it is absolutely true that the balancer has a much easier job if we charge to a higher voltage. Balancing is much easier, quicker, and we should see a better result with these passive balancers. And even a 200 milliamp balancer should make a difference. Well guys, today is the day we want to find out. After all these weeks of testing now, I've charged the battery almost every day now to 56.8 volt and let it sit there for 1 hour absorption time. And after this 1 hour, I reduced the voltage to 55.2, which was my float settings. And even that was still in the steep area of our charge curve. So even here the balancer was active. So I had several hours of balancing action in this battery shelf here for the last couple of weeks. There were only a few days when I couldn't fully charge the battery in the last couple of weeks. And the deviation in both batteries, the top shelf and the bottom shelf with the BMSs with passive balancer, was around like 200, 250 millivolt of deviation at 56.8 volts. And these two BMSs actually shut down every single day because one of the cells was hitting the 3.65 volts. So the question is, has this now improved? Have these two BMSs with passive balancer had enough time to balance these two battery packs again? Well, we are at 82% state of charge and still charging with 162 amps into the battery pack. So I guess this will be another hour or so and then we should be very close to 100%. And I'll start the screen recorder then to show you all three BMSs while we are fully charging this battery shelf. So I'll see you in a second. So let's have a quick look at the Off-Grid Garage in the Victron VRM. We are at 97% state of charge. Still charging with around 5000 watts now into the battery. And we are at 55.2 volts almost charge voltage. This is charge voltage. This is not the battery voltage. Charge voltage is always higher than the battery voltage. If I would turn off the charger now, the voltage would go down to the battery voltage. It would be like 53.6 or something. I don't know. All right. And here we have our three BMSs. All the screen recorders are running, hopefully. On the left, we have the Heltec BMS in the top battery shelf, showing us 55.2 volts as well. We are still charging with around 19 to 20 amps. We know the shunt is not very calibrated in the Heltec BMS, so it always shows a bit less than it actually is. Deviation is 70 millivolt, and we can see cell number 1 to 10 is still balancing, so nothing has changed there, at least. In the middle, we've got the JK BMS with a 2 amp active balancer. The balancer is already balancing. 82 amps going into this battery still at 55.2 volts as well. And the deviation here is 86 millivolts. So it's actually worse than the Heltec BMS. And on the right, we've got the Overkill BMS in the bottom shelf. 55.3 volts. It shows us 10 amps charging only. And deviation here is 103 millivolt already. So, and this is something I have observed for quite a while, that the middle shelf battery with the JK BMS is taking most of the power once the battery gets fully charged. See, the other two batteries in the top and bottom have already tapered off. They are taking around 10 amps. The Overkill is even at 5 to 6 amps sometimes, while the battery in the middle shelf still takes 85 amps. And honestly, I'm not sure why this is. I believe, because this is the only difference between all these battery banks here on the shelf, it has something to do with the aluminium bus bars I have used in this battery here. And as you know, I have put them on purpose on this battery here to see if there's any long-term results, experience, anything we can share, we can learn from using aluminium bus bars instead of the copper bus bars which are coming with the cells. So these are all the standard tinned copper bus bars coming with the cells, and these are PowerPole's aluminium bus bars. This is the only difference we have. I don't know if this has something to do with it. If the middle battery takes now more energy, that would mean it has also delivered more energy before, right? So it is on a lower state of charge than the other batteries. And again, these aluminium bus bars have a lower resistance than the standard copper bus bars coming with the cells. So maybe this battery discharges faster than the other two batteries because of the lower resistance. Okay, we are now a bit over 98% state of charge. Overkill BMS, there's no balancing happening here because I think I have turned off charge balance exactly. Because otherwise it doesn't balance when there's no current flowing. Charge balance is such a bad and overturned idea from lithium-ion batteries, but we are still dealing with this kind of shit here. It's just not workable for lithium iron phosphate. So I turned on the charge balancer again, and now we are balancing, but it doesn't have any effect because we are still charging with 6 amps as well. So we are putting 6 amps into these batteries here, and we are taking away 150 milliamps at the same time. So there's almost no effect in balancing. Okay, 56 volts. In the Heltec BMS, the maximum cell voltage is 3.57. In the JK, the highest is 3.559. And in the Overkill, the highest battery is 3.58. So it's still good, still under 3.6 in all batteries. But look at the deviation, how it goes up now. 165 millivolt Heltec, 105 JK, and 197 in the Overkill. 56.2 volts. Voltage is rising faster now. We are in the steep area of the curve now. It's almost going straight up right now. 56.5 volts. Are we seeing an overvoltage protection in the Heltec or Overkill BMS? Overkill BMS is at 3.64 now. So far, all 3 BMSs are still alive. But I think the Overkill will turn off the first. Yep, there the Overkill has turned off. Charging is off. And as you can see now, balancing is continuing. Even we have a charge balancer turned on because we hit the 3.65 volts. Such a weird thing. The Heltec BMS balancer is on. Now the charge MOSFET have turned off right now. So only the JK in the middle with 133 millivolt deviation has survived. Is still charging with around 70 amps. And we are at 56.8 volt now. This is our absorption voltage. We keep this voltage now for 1 hour. And this is for 2 reasons. A, to give the battery time to absorb, to fully charge to 100%, and also give the balancer some time to do its job. So we can also see here the frequency of the multiplus has now increased to 51.1 Hertz. That means our PV inverter, the micro inverter of the tilt system we have built on top of the house, is now throttling down. It produces only 700 watts now. Then here 56.8 volts, constant voltage charging now, and now the current is slowly coming down. But all this current goes into the JK in the middle battery shelf with the JK BMS now, for whatever reason. What do you think? Why is this happening? Okay, so in both BMSs or batteries now, in the top and bottom shelf, you can see the BMS's balancers are still working, which lowers the overall battery voltage. And at some stage, the charge MOSFETs will turn on again and allow charging again. And then a huge spike of current is coming into these batteries then from the middle shelf battery and also from the solar chargers, and recharges them quickly until one of the cells hits again 3.65 volts, and then the whole game starts again. Charge MOSFETs turn off, balancers keep working. But here, as you can see in the overkill BMS, for example, cell number 15 is still our lowest cell with 3.37. There's almost 250 millivolt deviation in the overkill BMS here. And in the top shelf, balancing cell number 1 to 10, and we had over 200 millivolt deviation here as well when the charge MOSFETs turned off. So I would say we give this now an hour until we go to float mode, and then we compare the results again after this hour, what has improved when the passive balancer in these two BMSs is working on these batteries here. And then I'll be back in the garage with more information. It is now like 1.5 hours later. I have totally forgotten about it, of course. I have turned off the float mode, so we stayed on absorption voltage all the time. What a clever guy. So, and I want to start at the bottom with the overkill solar BMS. So you can see it is still balancing. We've got a deviation of 264 millivolts still. We've got 56 volts. Charge MOSFETs have turned off. And it's now discharging all the cells until they are all under 3.6 volts. And then it turns on the charge MOSFETs again, gets a bit of recharge from the other batteries and the solar system, until one of the cells hits 3.65 volts again. And it continues doing this forever. But the deviation is not decreasing. Yeah, it's not getting better. I turned off the float mode and left the absorption voltage on for hours. And deviation has not decreased in this BMS, not at all. Not a single millivolt. So, and as you can see, neither the Heltec nor the overkill BMS were actually able to do any progress here with our balancing. The deviation is still far over 200, 250 millivolt. It does not come down, even not after weeks now of balancing at this higher voltage here, giving the balancer time for an hour to do its job. It's not coming down. So I have made pretty much no progress in all this time balancing these two battery banks. So what are we going to do now? Well, the only reasonable solution is to open the battery shelf at the top and at the bottom and install an active balancer. I've got like, yeah, here. I ordered 3 of the active balancers for the Seplos Polo batteries before they actually fix the software. And we can use 2 of them and add these balancers to the top and bottom shelf of our battery shelf here. I will only connect them temporarily to do a full top balance, and then I'll disconnect it again. I'll try to bring the deviation down as much as possible, and then we disconnect the balancer again and probably do a test for another 2 weeks or so and see if the BMS balancer is actually capable of keeping the top balance we have made with the active balancer before. So only a temporary connection to make the top balance, and then we disconnect the active balancer again and leave it all up to the passive balancer in the BMS. If they bring 150 milliamp, they should be able to keep these batteries relatively balanced. But so far, no. There's nothing. Not one single bit of dust. It's so good. Okay, so here we are in the bed. Why is there no maintenance light on? Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so when we install the battery shelf here, I have put these terminal blocks here in place where the balance cables are connected to our battery, and on the other side we've got the BMS connected, but we also have a second row here free where we can now plug in our active balancer without disturbing the connections of the BMS. And this is exactly the purpose of these double terminal blocks here. I'll link them down below. They are amazing. I don't think these cables are stripped far enough. Let's see. Oh no, could be alright. So this is our 0, main negative. First cable comes and you just keep going. So we have now connected our balance cables here to the second ports of these terminals, of these dual terminals. I've checked the voltage consistency as well, so make sure they're all in the right order. Otherwise it will be a very short life for your active balancer. And we just put this here on top of the plastic bag it came in. We actually don't need any plastic bag. We can put it here directly on the aluminium. It doesn't really matter, because there's a plastic already on top of it, so it's not the aluminium. Okay, of course we want to have a look at the BMS first before we plug anything in. So we've got a deviation of 237 millivolt at 56 volts. All right, this is our start point, and the yellow light will turn on. It is balancing now cell number 1 to 8 already, and now we plug in the second. We plug in the second bunch of cables here. Wow, they are tight. All right, balancer is working. We put this back here on the aluminium. And now the only thing we have to do is watch the deviation. No, 217 already, 16. So connected the balance cable harness to our terminal block in the bottom shelf battery, checked all the voltages. Okay, we now connect the active balancer here in the bottom shelf. No, that's the wrong one. Light is on, balancer is working. Okay, we put them on the aluminium shelf. Okay, I would say let's leave this running here for next half an hour. I'll calibrate ice cold SPET. Thank you very much for your generous donations, and I'll be back afterwards with hopefully better results than this. We are slowly discharging our batteries now because, well, look at this, sunset. No solar power anymore. Can only be one solution: turning on the generator. So, and the Multiplus is now regulating the generator, and it's taking only so much energy as it needs to keep the batteries on 56.8 and supply power to our loads, AC and DC, which is 2 kilowatts at the moment, because the batteries need some recharge. So my friends, it is a bit later than anticipated, but the generator is still running and the Multiplus is on float mode. I have set the float voltage the same as the absorption voltage in the Multiplus, so we keep the battery constant on 56.8 volts, just for the test. So let's have a look at the BMSs, what's going on. So here we have all 3 BMSs again. On the left, the Heltec BMS in the top battery shelf is now down to 20 millivolt. Yes, 20 millivolt at 56.8 volts or 7 volts, whatever. Balancing has completely stopped because the deviation is so small now. The JK in the middle is down to 2 millivolt deviation. That is incredible. Balancing has stopped here as well because we are under the threshold. And the overkill BMS in the bottom shelf, deviation is 15 millivolt. So as you can see, after 2.5 hours around, the batteries are now fully balanced at 3.55 volts. And I think we will take a screenshot now of this situation here, leave this running for another 2 weeks and see what the deviation is by then. So I'm still going to charge to 56.8 volts. Hold the voltage there for 1 hour to let the battery absorb and also have the balancers doing their job. And then we reduce the voltage to 55.2, as I did it in the last couple of weeks since I started this test. I will, however, disconnect the active balancer again now, and we will solely work with the internal BMS balancer. And I want to see if these internal balancers are actually capable of keeping these small deviations now, especially in the Heltec and in the Overkill BMS. Because before they couldn't quite balance these batteries. I couldn't get it done. So let's do this test for the next 2 weeks and see how we go. And if you haven't seen and you don't know how these active balancers actually work, I link a video from my good old friend Stuart I don't know how to pronounce his last name. This guy here. Yes, he's the man from the do-it-yourself battery, which we will test here in the off-grid garage as well. So we are in the process of figuring something out. But watch his video, which I will link down below, when he reverse engineered the active balancer. It is a very good video, very easy to understand, and it explains in all details how these active balancers work and why they are dependent on the voltage difference you have across your cells. The higher the deviation across all your cells is, the higher the balance current is. You have to watch it. It's a really good video. And if you haven't got one of these active balancers, I link them down below as well. Well, by now everyone should have one of these active balancers at least for maintenance purposes. You know, if you maintain your battery and you experience a bit of a higher deviation, take one of these active balancers, put it on for 2.5–3 hours, and your battery is fully balanced again. And maybe do this once a year and you'll be fine. Well, guys, I must admit, the increase in charge voltage here in my battery shelf has not made any benefits with the balancing situation. So neither the Heltec nor the Overkill BMS was able to actually improve the situation in my battery shelf and balance these battery cells. And while we have seen these passive balancers work, now we have tested the Pace BMS as well as the Sepler's BMS, both with a passive balancer. And when you let the battery just sit there with a power supply connected on 56.8 volts or something, they do actually balance your battery pack overnight. But here, with the battery shelf and the daily consumption and charging, the daily usage of this battery, the BMS is not able to balance the battery pack. And now with the second test here, we want to confirm, or we want to explore the possibility, if the battery is top balanced, can they maintain this top balancing? Or is the deviation getting worse again over time? So another 2 weeks, and then we have a follow-up video and have the result. It is pitch black outside. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your great support here. So many people have joined the SPAT team now. Thank you very much for your generous donations. Also, thank you very much for all your emails you're still sending me. Please leave all your comments down under the videos. That's where I am. That's where everyone else is of the community, helping you out with your questions. Please do not send me any emails, because I won't be able to reply to you. And until the next video, when we do something completely different again, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye-bye. Don't forget to comment why my middle battery in the shelf here is discharging faster and charging longer than the other two battery banks. What do you think? Why is this happening?